Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tearing into a really pointed critique of recent U.S. foreign policy towards Iran.
Yeah, it's quite a piece.
We've got this document, and our job really is to unpack the most important insights for you. And just to be clear, we're focusing on one specific critique here. It's a particular view, and we're just relaying its arguments.
Exactly. And this critique paints the administration's actions as, well, deeply contradictory. It argues they've really damaged diplomacy. So we'll dig into the main claims, the strategic points it makes, and the way forward it suggests, all from the source's perspective, of course.
Okay, so where does it start? It mentions these contradictory signals right at the top. What examples does it give?
Well, the big one it highlights is President Trump apparently saying Iran was interested in talks, maybe even welcoming it.
Okay.
But then, almost right away, there was military action aimed at Iran's nuclear infrastructure.
Ah, so talking peace while taking military action.
Precisely. And the critique argues that this kind of thing, these mixed messages, they don't just hurt trust in the moment. They actually chip away at a country's credibility long term. Makes all future diplomacy that much harder.
Yeah, that makes sense. Trust is fragile on the world stage. And the source also stresses Iran's view that its nuclear program is peaceful and it's been taking a diplomatic path.
Right.
So from this perspective, hitting infrastructure before talks even start, that feels like an aggressive move.
That's exactly how the source frames it, as an aggressive provocation. It argues it's basically trying to push Iran into an unfair position instead of having a real conversation.
Like negotiating under duress.
Yeah, essentially. The force suggests actions like targeting sensitive sites, especially nuclear ones, are seen as direct challenges, high-stakes escalation.
Which is pretty much the opposite of diplomacy.
Fundamentally at odds with it, according to this critique.
And the analysis goes deeper, right? It questions the reasons behind the strategy.
It does. It suggests maybe the policy isn't purely about peace or stability. It floats the idea that it could be more about aligning with controversial figures. It specifically names Prime Minister Netanyahu.
And it points out the allegations against him.
Yes, the critique mentions serious allegations, including what it describes as war crimes, suggesting alignment with such figures raises questions about the policy's goals.
So the source is saying, look, threats and ultimatums, that's not how you do diplomacy.
Not at all. It argues that using threats of overwhelming force, as it puts it, actually kills the chance for peaceful resolution. It just ramps up tensions, closes doors.
Okay, so moving past the criticism of the actions and motives, what about fixing things? Does the source offer a way forward or talk about accountability?
It does. It argues these decisions have really hurt international ties and risk destabilizing things quite badly. It gets pretty strong, suggesting the administration should be held accountable. It even mentions impeachment as a possibility for, quote, creating disorder.
Wow, okay, so that's the accountability part. What about rebuilding?
The path forward, according to this source, requires humility. That's the word it uses.
Humility, how so?
It means admitting mistakes, strategic errors, offering genuine apologies, and then, crucially, returning to diplomacy that's grounded in mutual respect. Without that shift, the source seems pretty pessimistic about reconciliation.
And it doesn't mince words about who's responsible for the current situation.
No, it's very direct.
Yeah.
It explicitly states that President Trump pulling out of the nuclear deal, the one from the Obama era, makes him, quote, solely responsible. Responsible for the breakdown in diplomacy and the risk of war involving the U.S., Iran, and the wider region. That's the source's conclusion.
So wrapping this up for you, the listener, what's the big picture here from this particular critique?
Well, it gives you a very clear look at one perspective that sees recent U.S. policy towards Iran as inconsistent and damaging. It really highlights the impact of those perceived contradictions.
Yeah, it definitely leaves you thinking. In this messy world of geopolitics, how do these different ways of dealing with other countries, talking directly versus applying heavy pressure, how do they ultimately affect trust and stability globally?
Something to keep pondering long after this deep dive is over.